So the mermaid witch doctors is something I'm going to talk about today, which I just realised how fantasy all of that fits in perfectly.
You do sound like you've just got out of a straitjacket.
Yeah. The mermaid witch doctors, man. We got to deal with them, man.
I mean, even Alex Jones is just like, whoa, chill out about that.
Interdimensional demons? No, the mermaid witch doctors. That's a real thing in Britain. What am I saying? Anyway, when we go forth, we'll start with a piece of content on lotus.com, of course, being analysing what is a woman. This being very relevant to what I'm about to talk about. For folks who don't know, mermaids, they don't swim in the sea. No, this is instead a charity who is insistent on transitioning children and is entirely famous for that. Which
they swim in piles of cash and child abuse. That's what they swim in.
Yeah, I don't know how the mermaid's rhetoric gets into the idea that you should chop off half your body and become a fish or something, and that's like transgenderism because
I've never thought of it like that.
Why are they called mermaids? I don't actually know why they chose that name.
I suppose because a mermaid is part one thing, part another, right? As in, it's part fish, part human.
But that makes the whole argument sound even stupider. It's like, we're going to turn your kid into half fish. What? Get out of my house! But in case you're wondering that this might be a fringe lunatic movement, I'm just bringing up that no, it's a huge thing in British society at this point. If you go to the next link here, we can see that they're actually now being investigated for child abuse by the police.
I'm really not surprised.
Yeah. This is for chest binding, which is a beautiful thing when it happens in the West, but in the rest of the world it's barbaric and we've criminalised it, which was kind of a mistake because now we have to criminalise the beautiful thing in the West. Amazing logic. Chest binding could be child abuse, say police amid mounting horror at Mermaids trans charity. Could be, I don't know. I mean, it says in this law that it's illegal, but...
That's like the Met Police coming out saying, well, if you punch your child in the face, that could be child abuse. Well, the jury's out.
Yeah. What am I, a police officer? I don't know. Chest binding is a potential child abuse, the Metropolitan Police have said, over the concerns of the trans charity who wants to turn your kid into a fish. Sorry, but I can't get over that name that I thought about. It is even more stupid than anyway. Scotland Yard has said that if police receive reports of child using a breast binder, which is used to flatten the chest, officers will investigate it along with social services. So if there a child who has been given a chest binder to flatten their breasts, then that is child abuse, and the police will intervene along with social services to save that child from the abuse, from whoever's the abuser, and in this case, it's a trans charity.
I don't know why it's taken this long. I mean, we've known about this for years now.
Yeah. It comes after investigation by the Telegraph that found that Mermaids has been discreetly sending binders to children as young as 13 and 14, whose parents will not let them use one.
How do they do that then? Do they post it out? Do you have to, would a child apply for one and they would send it in the mail anonymously? But then, if I were getting post, my parents would be asking me, what's that?
It's very creepy. Mermaids do a lot of stuff in schools, so I imagine it's via the schools. So you handed over your child to the state to take care of them for a few hours while you do your job, and then pay taxes and all that to fund all of this, the state will come in and invite charities like this to literally abuse your children.
It's horrifying, isn't it? And
yeah, I mean, the West does look more and more unappetizing.
I don't know whether you're going into the damage that these things can do. Are you talking about that?
We will do a little bit.
Okay, I won't spoil it then.
Yeah, I don't want to do too much because it's a bit gross. But on the website, the Metropolitan Police describes the offence of breast ironing, also called breast flattening, which is a form of female genital mutilation, most commonly practiced in Cameroon. So it was a crime, and put on the statute books as a crime. And then this ideology turned up and made it a common occurrence by a group like Mermaids, and now the police are sat there like, crap, we actually have to go after our own ideological comrades here. Which is, I guess, good to see. I don't know what else to say. The force describes it as child abuse, and says that sometimes an elastic belt or binder is used to stop the breasts from growing.
Yeah, it's horrific.
According to guidance from the Crown Prosecution Service, breast ironing is an offence regardless of consent. It is not possible to consent to serious assault. Yeah. It's not possible to consent to genital mutilation either.
I've never heard the Met Police say something actually sensible before. Are they?
No.
I'm sure they're feeling all right.
This is the weirdness, because all of this obviously applies to what is going on with Mermaids' activities, but all of these statements were previously made in response to what was going on in Cameroon.
Oh.
We have to save the girls of Cameroon, so we will do these things because women's rights.
So they're not talking specifically about the Mermaids thing, they're talking about the Cameroon...
Well, these are statements on breast ironing and breast flattening. which
Okay.
both of these groups are engaging in, but only one is being actively criminalized, whereas the police have now realized, oh crap, we have to do this because it's legal, and now are investigating Mermaids for exactly this. Mermaids has not commented directly on the findings of the Telegraph's investigation, but said it takes a harm reduction position, which is why it abuses children. Cool. That providing a binder and safety guidelines, quote, is preferable to the likely alternative of unsafe practices and or continued or increasing dysphoria. Okay, witch doctor. You are a witch doctor. You are nothing else here. You're like, yeah, well, this may be child abuse, is destroying their bodies, but it is better than them being a little bit confused. It is better than them maybe turning back on all of this and saying, hang on, those guys at Mermaids are groomers. I'm leaving.
Well, yeah, children shouldn't be thinking about this sort of thing anyway. They should be protected from this sort of nonsense because they don't have the mental maturity to understand that an adult is pushing something onto them.
Sure, but the adults in Mermaids can accurately be described as child abusers, and the defense of the child abuse is, well, we think it's safer than alternatives. It's like, right, so you're saying you're a child abuser and you think that's a good thing. Cool. Cool, I'm glad with that.
It's sickening.
Literal witch doctors, don't know what to say. Before it offers to send the binder, they do their due diligence, however. Mermaid staff alert the children to a study by the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, which found that 97% of adult users experience health impacts from the binding, including pain, rib fractures, changes to the spine, headaches, respiratory and skin infections, as well as muscle wasting.
That sounds way worse than a bit of gender dysphoria. I don't know about you, but that nice menu of health problems is enough to cripple someone, basically, isn't it?
Be sure to check with your doctor and parents. Oh wait, no, we can't let you do that because, well, then we wouldn't be able to get away with it.
At least we haven't got to the point where the GPs are handing them out, here's your chest binder prescription.
But that's the thing, it's just like, yeah, here's all the... Number one, you give a health study to a child. You think they're going to read that. Most adults don't read health study to off with that. But then, but we've told them about the side effects, which are terrible, and then you're saying, yeah, but child abuse? Not as bad as this? Like, sorry?
It's a terrible argument, isn't
It's
it?
just like, you're going to do all of this in the aid of, trust us, it's not as bad as them being a bit confused. Great. On Tuesday, Baroness Nicholson of Winterbourne, a Tory peer, said, quote, I have been closely following the Mermaids saga with mounting horror that this so-called charity is allowed by our laws to abuse the essential parental responsibility of health and welfare of their children.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, 100%. And good to see a Tory peer doing their job there, which is, raising awareness of this and saying this needs to be legislated. These child abusers need to be tried with the crime they've committed.
To be fair, the eye of Westminster is somewhat on these trans charities because they've been going after a few of them now, haven't they? Because they basically defunded Stonewall too. I'm not sure if you're going to talk about that as well.
I have previously. We're well aware. And I just wanted to mention, though, because there's the reality. There it is in Cameroon, as mentioned by the police. Illegal because of women's rights. Done it for trans people. Crap, it's still illegal, so they're having to enforce the law. But I thought we'd go and check out what the left wing generally thinks when this is happening in Cameroon. Instead, if we go to a Vice article here, we have their headline saying, the victims of Cameroon's horrific breast ironing tradition. Yeah. Yeah, what about the tradition in England? Are you doing the same thing? Then what, Vice? Vice magazine. For the most part, the flattening is carrying out by female family members, either at home or with the assistance of a healer. I mean, this is what I mean, witch doctors.
Healer.
This is witch doctor crap.
Oh.
The process begins as soon as the girls hit puberty. Really? Yeah, funny. Yeah, exactly the same. For some, that means as early as 8 years old. Oh, but they do it a little bit sooner, so it's a bit worse. As if Mermaid wouldn't start here. They had the option. The consequences of this can be disastrous for the victim's health. Cysts, breast cancer, and breastfeeding issues are all common, not to mention the abundance of psychological consequences linked to the practice.
Well, it was saying at the top of the Vice article that they use sometimes a hot spatula.
Yeah.
Could you imagine doing that to a child, putting a hot spatula
Sure, but
up against and
the health
horrifying.
impacts of both methods are the same. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, we accurately identify that these are a bunch of witch doctors when it comes to this. Whereas when it happens with Mermaids, it's fantastic. It's at least they don't have gender dysphoria anymore. But yeah, you just ruined their life. Nothing big. Anyway, we go to the next link because also the Charity Commission is also investigating Mermaids. So more good news. Backlash is happening. I'm happy to see it. The regulator said it had opened a regulatory compliance case after concerns were raised about the trans charity's approach to safeguarding of young people, which is that they don't. What if we just don't safeguard young people? Pretty cool idea. Let's do it. And that's what they did. The charity has been sending potentially dangerous breast binders devices to children behind their parents' backs and discussing with them how puberty-blocking drugs are totally reversible. Trust us, bro.
Based on what?
Don't tell your parents, because if you tell them, they might find out they're not reversible.
That is just a flat-out lie, isn't it?
Just sick. Everyone in this organisation is deeply sick. Mermaids, which receives funding from the taxpayer and runs training sessions for schools, the NHS, the police force, has been contacted by the regulator. So there we are. That's the kind of tentacles they had, and they're now being chopped off, hopefully. In the last month, there were discussions in the charity's moderated forum for 12 to 15-year-olds on how to raise money to start taking drugs, and the best way to take testosterone.
Okay. I thought this was just like a side project. Just like, yeah, we're also getting kids addicted to drugs. Yeah, we're good.
What's the difference?
Well, yeah.
I would rather the kiddos smoked weed than took this, especially with the lie. It's totally reversible. First, it's free. Like, it's just, yeah, you're a bunch of drug dealers and child abusers. Okay. I'm sorry, but like, how has this ideology lasted more than 5 minutes? But money. Just money, I guess. Our moderator also publicly congratulated a teenage user, it's like a drug user, for deciding that they were transgender by the age of 13 and decided that they wanted to use drugs and all the surgeries. Fantastic.
Does it actually say that in the...
Yeah, that's the rendition. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
I'm laughing only because it's so horrific.
I tell
I
you,
don't know
man.
how to react to this. This is just...
A lot of people get mad at me laughing at a lot of
awful.
stuff because it's terrible. I am so in clown world at this point. I just laugh because you will kill yourself if you don't. Mothers have said that they are horrified by what young adolescents are being exposed to behind their parents' backs. Why? Isn't it great? No, it's not. It's hell on earth. In a previous complaint to the commission, one parent said she was hugely concerned that conversations with homophobic content made her son believe being gay was unacceptable, and rushed him into believing he needed to be medically transitioned. Which, that's a new one. So mermaids are also very Islamic. They've taken the Iranian approach.
Yes.
That you're gay? That's pretty cringe, bro. Maybe you're a girl. Actually, what happened? Great. Despite growing evidence about the danger of puberty blockers, it's growing evidence. You know these drugs were used to castrate prisoners? Yeah, what are we giving to kids? What do you mean there might be side effects? I don't know. As if no one knew. As if no one knew. Mermaids maintains that they are, quote, internationally recognised, safe, reversible healthcare option, which has been recommended by medical authorities in the UK and internationally for decades. Yeah, okay, I believe this. Number one, I don't believe it. Even if it is, then okay, every one of those health authorities needs to be looked at. The hard drive sieved, because I don't know what's wrong with you. But you might wonder, how does a interdimensional satanic organisation, as Alex Jones might say, stay afloat? The mermaid witch doctors? Yankee money, partly.
Of course.
Yeah.
Alongside our own tax money.
Oh, look at that. It's AOC. She got dragged into this. This is Andy No reporting. Thank you, Andy. Congresswoman AOC directed her followers to support the child's trans group, now under investigation by British authorities for child abuse and being a drug dealer. Frankly, I'm saying that because you literally are bragging about giving drugs to kids. I don't know if you can click on that one, actually, John, just on the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweet itself. Oh, would you look at that? What she was talking about has been deleted. Oh, it's
No
gone.
way.
Oh,
It's almost like it might be embarrassing.
yeah, good thing there's an archive, in case you were wondering what the hell it was. So you have AOC saying if you'd like to use this as a good moment to support the queer community. The queer community are not a bunch of child abusing drug dealers, I hope. That's AOC's characterization, not mine. You can go and give support to Mermaids, she says at the time, and the Yankee money rolled in. And you can see here, Mermaids, what they deleted, because they're embarrassed now, is them tweeting out here, "Thank you to everyone who has donated and supported this amazing spontaneous event. Watch H Bomber Guy online now as he tries to finish Donkey Kong 64.
What?
You remember this? People who know who H Bomber Guy is. It's a leftist YouTuber who was raising money, doing live streams for mermaids, and now we found out what mermaids did with that money, which is abuse kids and deal drugs. I was like, huh. Interesting.
That was such a non sequitur at first, where it's just like, now watch someone play Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah, it was a fundraising event to raise money to do this to kids.
Oh, dear.
And everyone on the left was happy to do this, and now they're trying to hide it, at least mermaids are, by deleting that tweet. Which I think
I'm
is
not
incredibly
surprised.
telling. Yeah. Suppose we'll go to the next one now, just to see what mermaids are up to these days. As you can see here, racial pride flag in the bio, a hashtag we can all get on board with, trans is beautiful. It's like, yeah.
Is it?
Child abusers are not, and that's you. And if you scroll down, you can see no one's allowed to comment. If you just scroll a bit more. Yeah, comments are turned off.
I can imagine what would be commented if they had open comments. It'd be lots of pictures of really poorly passing trans people, I imagine.
I would also just be like, groomer. Which, you go into schools, you take my money as a taxpayer to then abuse children. Funnily enough, we're enemies. We're not going to thank you and send you money like H Bomber Guy and AOC did. That's for sure. Again, is H Bomber Guy even British? I can't remember.
I don't know.
The Yankee money coming in here and destroying our country. I know it's not Americans, don't get me wrong. I'm saying Yankee to be like fucking leftists, because it is them. If we go to the next one here, we can see Vox, also their reaction to all of this kind of news. This is an article they published today, which I have to just tell you about. What's so scary about a transgender child? The headline reads, with the byline saying, stop worrying about what happens if we let kids transition. Worry about what happens if we don't.
That sounds almost like a threat, doesn't it?
It's almost like they're admitting, yeah, we know this is terrible. Don't think about it. Just don't stop mentioning it. Nothing goes wrong.
Do you want your genetic lineage to end
We
with
know,
you?
We know that we give drugs to kids that are not reversible, but stop thinking about that and worry about the suicide rate. Again, I am so bored of this argument of, trust me, the suicide rate for trans people is so bad, we need to ruin society to solve it.
There's also the fact that the post-op rate goes up.
It's just not scientific in the slightest. It's just like, okay, you're just all mad, right? Cool and evil. And the reason I think they're retreating into this crevice is because they've had the successful pushback amongst the entire Anglosphere, and well done chaps to everyone who's been part of it. And now they are retreating back to, but think of the suicide rates, because that's how we got here, and people didn't know enough about what was going on, and now we do, and no one's going to buy it. Until this year, this conversation about trans kids has mostly been carried out in the media, with publications from the New York Times and Atlantic to Los Angeles Times, publishing stories that suggested medical practitioners aren't doing enough to vet potential transitioners under the age of 18.
So implicit in that is something interesting that they're saying, yeah, it's largely the media. There isn't really an appetite for it in the general population. It's just, the journalist types.
Yeah, but also the journalists are reporting all these stories where we transition kids and that's not necessary. So that we have the evidence. I know this is difficult, but so we have the evidence, and then what do we do with that evidence? I don't know. So I'm going to look at it, decide what we should do in response to it, which is maybe transition less people or no people who don't need to do it.
Looking at evidence. What, you a transphobe?
Yeah, literally. There is evidence that we've gone too far. Right, Vox. So let's go more. But those stories aren't about passing legislation, at least on their face. They were typically aimed at a presumed audience of parents. The Atlantic emblazoned on its 2018 cover the words, quote, "Your child says he's trans. He wants hormones and surgery. He's 13. Only it didn't use the right pronouns to refer to the real trans boy who served as its model." You'll notice I read that out because it's a quote. It was she. They changed it to he in this article to hide the reality, because these people haven't watched 1984, I guess. But it's also a testament to, as you say, look how quickly things have changed. 2018, an outlet like The Atlantic were willing to say, yeah, the pronouns are not doing that. And now they would never dare. Parents have been receiving an onslaught of messages about what could go wrong if their child was transitioned.
Well, I mean...
What could go wrong? What happens every time a child is transitioned?
I like how they say messages, not information, not evidence.
No.
Just messages.
You're going to have to dilate for the rest of your life? Is that something that goes wrong, or is that something that happens to everyone who does the bottom surgery? Because I think it's the latter. In which case, it's not a side effect. Like, this is your game. This is a feature, not a bug. They've rarely been asked to consider what could go wrong if they weren't able to. Yeah. We are running an experiment on what happens when you don't accept trans kids. No, we're not. The entire West is in the entire opposite. We're running an experiment about what happens when you do this to a bunch of kids who don't need it done. And we're starting to get the results. It ain't pretty. The risks inherent in treating a trans child's identity as a temporary fancy can be considerable. Most importantly, keeping a teenager from transitioning before puberty. Yeah, because if we don't lock them in before puberty, they might not go through with it.
It's so silly as well. The notion of even halting puberty, or the amounts of...
flattening their breasts.
Yeah, all of these sorts of things obviously are going to do more harm to them than enforcing their own delusions. Probably many of these children have been socialised rather than it being actual genuine gender dysphoria.
That's to be treated. No, it is, and as previously mentioned, if we don't abuse children, right, Vox? I mean, just translating into reality here, because that's the British law, in case the Americans don't like it. If we don't abuse children, well, who knows what might happen? It's like, okay, you're getting arrested. Like,
guess what? None of this stuff existed when I was a kid, and all of it, and for some mysterious reason, I never considered becoming a woman.
Yeah, I can't get over the idea of. Imagine someone coming to you and saying, "Well, if I don't rape women, imagine what might happen to them." Like, police, can you arrest this guy?
What would happen would be they would have a normal childhood, is what would happen.
Yeah. So we have a quote from a trans activist. Quote, puberty blockers are reversible, but the puberty that transgender kids go through without them isn't. Lie number one. Okay, we're off to just fake news start. Okay. They then say, puberty writes itself into your bones.
That's a really weird turn of phrase. It does change your skeletal structure, yes.
No, keep it in mind. Puberty is in your fucking bones. It's that base to your life. However, without blockers and at appropriate age, hormones, it forces transgender girls, who are girls like any other.
Oh, yeah.
It's in your bones, but transgender girls are girls like any other, except in actual reality that the person admits themselves. To grow facial hair and broad, angular features, and forces transgender boys to grow breasts and wide hips. It doesn't force them. It's your destiny to do this. It's not force. Jesus Christ. It affects can only be reversed by very expensive and difficult to access surgeries in adulthood, and even then only partially. No, not partially. Never. You are never going to beat your biology. This is not something anyone can do. It's actual madness. The recent hyperfocus on trans youth is largely a media invention, says Jules Gill Peterson, a history professor at Johns Hopkins University. The more I'm hearing about Johns Hopkins, the more I kind of just want to be like...
Also, history professor has opinion about...
medicine.
Yeah.
We needed medical advice, so we couldn't talk to the medical practitioners because they disagreed. So we went to the history department.
Oh, dear.
What does this history professor have to say? Trans people and trans youth were never really objects of the media until recently. I really don't think most people ever encountered the idea that they would share the world with a trans youth until 10 years ago.
Well, that's kind of true, yeah.
Well, yeah, great, thanks for the admission, Gil. Which is that all of this is just new. This is a new thing. It's weird. It's an ideological and financial fad, to say the least. And we can evidence that claim just by looking at the data. Again, I know, terrible. There you have it. We're looking at a graph of LGBTQ identification by generation. And all of humanity is pretty normal. You could argue with the millennials, there's a huge uptick there. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that, I don't know, all of a sudden 10% of all humanity became gay. Don't think so, but whatever. And then Gen Z, 20%.
So that's like population collapse levels of not engaging in having children.
So in 4 generations, 100% of humanity will be gay, and that's totally normal. That's actually the norm, the traditionalist position. Nothing is happening whatsoever. Yeah, no one believes this. No one's believing that for 5 minutes. We'll just go back quickly to how they justify it, which is at the end of this article. We don't listen to children. We treat children as manifestly inferior to adults. We give them less rights, says Gill.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, children can't consent. It's that simple. He goes on to argue, I don't have time for it, there's just a big paragraph of him arguing that children have some kind of consent and agency to be adults.
No.
Actual just garbage. I'm
That's
not even
like
going to bother.
MAPS level justification, isn't it?
Yeah, funny that. But checking in on the adults real quick, because, well, how do adults even navigate our clown society? We have here Guido Fawkes reporting from the Labour Party conference. Had to throw it in. Rosie Duffield, the MP who believes that women exist, decided to come out and give a speech saying Eddie Izzard is not a woman, and I am absolutely not the only Labour MP who will leave the party if Eddie Izzard gets on an all-women shortlist. Yeah, reality. And in response, she gets a huge round of applause and whooping from the audience, which I've said before, is just a testament to how effed we are.
I feel like I'm in the film Idiocracy at this point. It's like, women are real, yes.
She said it. Like, good God. But my point being that if adults are apparently so retarded that we can't navigate our clown society, how on earth do you expect a child to do such a thing without making a terrible, terrible mistake? It's impossible, frankly. And in which case, the child abusers deserve their investigation by the police and the Charities Commission. Good news, horrifying as it is. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the premium videos we do, this one on the relationship wisdom from Patrice O'Neill. And if you want to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.